Okay, are we all on board? Let me do attendance. We're going to finish chapter 4 today. We're going to review tomorrow. We're going to take a test on Tuesday, and Savannah has her hand up.
What did you do to your foot?
I cut my foot on August 22nd up at Lake George. I rented a camp for 2 weeks with another family that my wife grew up with from New Jersey. We're very close friends. And I was in the water on a nice sandy bottom, and I didn't have water shoes on. I was barefoot, and I stepped on something. I don't know what, because I didn't really feel it. All right, so that's what I thought might happen. I was kind of killing time here a little bit because I knew people would drift in because it's a lousy rainy day, and it takes longer to drive on a day like this. It took me longer. I didn't get here as early as I usually do. I usually try to get here pretty close to 7, so I have an hour to mail, drink a cup of coffee, eat some yogurt, take my medicine. It sucks getting old. Mostly it's because of blood sugar, which is why I didn't feel the cut. Because I'm very numb. So I have to be very careful with my feet. I have to inspect them all the time. It's weird. All right, so it's 9:30. Not really. It's only 8:07. But the date is 9:30. Hennessy's is here, and Peter's here. Bradley's not, Marissa's not, Bernice is here, Bryce is here, Steven's here, Nina's not here, Jen is here, Alex is here, Joe is here, and Nick is here. Very, very good. All right, 9:30. Everybody is present at South Courtright. Samantha, Taylor, Montana, Laura, Savannah, and Georgia. Savannah, Georgia. That's a ride, isn't it? There's a Savannah and a Georgia in the classroom. And that's a city in Georgia, right on the coast. All right, and Jennifer, I see you, and Taylor. We have no Wyndham today. All right. So I go to a podiatrist wound specialist. I didn't even know such people existed. All right, you know what I'd like to do is just sort of start over, check just a little bit, make sure we're all, on the same page, and ask if somebody would like to explain to me in your own words the nature versus nurture debate. Oh, come on, somebody be a brave soul. Tell me what the nature versus nurture debate is. Okay, Taylor. No, I'm sorry. Georgia.
Yep. Okay, so the nature versus nurture debate is against the people who are trying to figure out what has a bigger influence on a child, whether it's being nurtured and that's how you grow up, or the way that you are physically like nature. Yes.
Very good. Very good. It's basically is it heredity? Is it heredity and genetics, or is it environment? And that's pretty much what she said, and that's the answer. And so, actually humans don't have very many instincts when we're born, do we? We're one of the most helpless creatures on the planet. A human baby is really helpless. And all it really knows how to do is suck on things, or, as soon as you hand a human baby something, it goes in the mouth. They're going to taste it. They're going to see if can I bite on this? And they don't have teeth yet, but they're going to try to, at least suck on it. But other than that helplessness requires so much care and nurturing that that's what creates our culture. That's what makes us the most intelligent creatures on the planet. The human beings that share this planet with a whole bunch of animals. Anybody ever see the newer version of, what was it? Keanu Reeves played an alien, which is a good part for him because he's not a very good actor. The Day the Earth Stood Still. Did you know that there's an original black and white version of that movie? And that movie's about the fact that they made it in the 50s. Okay, so what was the possibility for the world, what could happen to the world as a new event in the 1950s?
UFOs.
Global thermonuclear war. Okay, so because we had developed the atomic bomb, and other nations started to get the bomb, Russia, and then we were pointing our missiles and bombs and bombers at one another. You know, according to the nearby planets where the aliens live, came a danger to, you know, the galaxy or this part of the galaxy. So the alien showed up, and his name was Klaatu. But he showed up to say, if you don't disarm and make peace on this planet, the robots that we created to keep the peace, the robot police is basically what he said. We created robots, and they're the police. If they see any aggression, they immediately destroy the aggressor with the most powerful weapons in the world. And we've given them control. So there's a little bit of Terminator in there. You know what I mean? It's kind of a cool concept. But so what they did with the new version is they made it that we're threatening the rest of other species of animals on this planet. Like Klaatu says, your planet, to the Secretary of State, you know, in the movie, the newer version. Your planet. What makes you think it's your planet? So they actually are saving all the species of animals because they're going to kill us. So because we share this planet with a lot of animals, and we cause them to actually go extinct, don't we? We do. We make the polar bear maybe next. Nina! You made it. Okay, so that was the nature versus nurture debate. Close track of time. I want to get through this whole chapter. Would you guys say, this isn't really a true or false question, but I'm gonna throw something out there. Would you say the effects of isolation at an early age are easily reversible if caught in time?
No.
Who said no? Taylor, why'd you say no?
Because
You are right. Your answer is right, but tell me why you said that.
because
Kids are very influenceable.
Because at like an early age, kids like to interact and stuff, and that helps them develop that trait or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually social isolation, even at an early age, can cause irreversible effects. That's the actual, okay? If you leave a child, if it's not cared for. Now, I'll give you an example. Of that. Let's see, it was Keels and Dye, I think are the names of two researchers that were psychologists. And back in the 1930s, what they did is they went to an orphanage that was actually attached to a residence for mentally handicapped people. At that time, the correct term was mental retardation. We don't do that anymore. Now it's developmentally disabled. Okay, but in the 1930s, there were people that were called, mentally retarded. That's where the term, the slang term, "you're a retard," came from. Okay, I don't know how many of you heard that. When I was a kid, people said it all the time to each other. But we're not supposed to really say that. It's not the politically correct term. But anyway, they went to this orphanage that was attached to a different building that was actually and it had a ward for women. And some of these women, although they were in their 30s and 40s, mentally they were a teenager. Okay? Like I know a girl I'm going to go to her 50th birthday party coming up, Mary Mahoney, and she was born a developmentally disabled, person, and she's actually very advanced. She's had a job. She worked at McDonald's for a while, but she needs constant care because she's really in her mind. She's like maybe 14 or 15. In some ways, she's still a little child. So anyway, the two researchers, they took a group of babies from the orphanage and they put them in the ward with the women. Of course, the women are supervised by nurses, all right? But each woman, one of the women got to have a baby to sort of take care of. And at night, they put the baby back in its crib. But during the day, the baby would be with, and these women, they got to the point where they were having, contests like whose baby is going to walk first, and, who can say mama, and it was really intense. So what they did is they did this as a very, very, very long-term study. And the kids, the control group of babies that stayed in the orphanage, most of them ended up being institutionalized as adults. Either they were in prison or they stayed in homes for people that were, developmentally disabled. But the babies that went and were cared for by the women, even though these women were mentally handicapped somewhat, these babies went on in life to become, several of them had colleges, educations, they had good jobs, they had families, they owned their own homes. They ended up being socialized normally. Because if you can imagine that in an orphanage, how much time does one nurse get to spend with one baby? They're constantly changing babies, propping the bottle, a little blanket, and running out to the next baby. And then they'll come back, change this baby real quick, run to the next. And that's how it was done in the 1930s. Orphanages were pretty evil places. And orphanages created a lot of bad guys. The movies used to depict that. The movies about gangsters. Not the gangstas of today, but the gangsters of the Prohibition era, where they all wore suits and had Tommy gun hats and, Al Capone, those guys. Some of those guys were actually from orphanages. They were not quite socialized very well. All right, so what is it that is important for an infant to have right at the start? Yeah, but what's a mother give? That's the answer I'm looking for.
Oh, when they latch? Like,
Intimate, early social interaction. That's a key word. You have to remember that. Intimate, early. Okay? If you can remember that is what actually starts to create our socialization when we can't even talk yet except go goo goo gaga.
Can you say the words?
Intimate, early social interaction. That is what is required. Now, what did we learn from watching the Harlow experiment? The rhesus monkeys.
That even though food, they want to nurture.
Somebody, who's answering? Raise your hand so I can tell which one. Laura, what were you going to say?
Even though the monkey that had the wiring, even though that monkey had food, the baby monkey wanted to stay with the monkey that had warmth and could nurture the baby.
Yeah, so literally what do you learn about mother-infant bonding? Even though this mother was an artificial, with a little plastic head and eyes, but it was covered in fur. Okay, that feeling of that fur, that closeness, was what the monkey was attracted to, not the wire. All the reason the monkey went to the wire for was to get some food, and then it would go back and spend most of its time hugging its mother. And of course, it's a little bit of a cruel thing to do to a baby monkey, but they didn't do it for the monkey's whole life. They actually put the monkey in with other monkeys that, and monkeys will adopt and take care of one another. So I believe, I don't know for sure if any monkeys were mentally harmed, but the study was kind of important because it tells a lot about social interaction. All right, so if a kid is not old enough yet to go to school, and let's say it's a little girl, she loves to play house, she has a toy stove, she pretends to be mom. Sometimes she might go outside and, pretend she's a policeman or something. What stage would George Herbert Mead say that child is in?
Play stage.
Jenna?
Play.
Play stage. Very good. Very good. All right. Okay, I want to go to Irving Goffman. Where's Irving? Where are you, Irving? Okay. Can everybody read those?
No.
Irving Goffman is a sociologist that came up with the term dramaturgy. Not the easiest word for me to say, but I think I said it right that time. I used to say dramaturgy, but it's dramaturgy. Okay? And dramaturgy has to do with the presentation of self in everyday life. Okay? The world is a stage, and we all have our parts. Sometimes we're working backstage, and then when it's your birthday and you're the center of attention, on stage. So we all have, according to Goffman, our life is sort of like a play. And that's what he calls dramaturgy. So one of the things that he came up with also was the use of the Thomas theorem, which is the classic formulation of the way individuals define situations, whereby if people define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. Now, what that means, that's going to be especially important if you are a criminal justice student. Okay, you're going to deal with the Thomas theorem almost on a day-to-day basis. Here's how. Let's say at an intersection, you are, your police car gets the call because you're closest, and go to this intersection. There was an auto accident. So one guy is yelling at the other guy's yelling. There's two guys yelling, and neither of them seem to be in the right mind to say what happened. So you start asking other people what happened. Are you going to get the same story? No, not. Because people see what they see, okay, and then they interpret what they see. And that's the Thomas theorem. It becomes real to them. What they're telling you is real to them. Whether or not it's real is a different question, but it's real to them. That's the Thomas theorem. Policemen deal with that often, okay? The definition of the situation is an agreement with others about what is going on. In a given circumstance, this consensus allows us to coordinate our actions with those of others and realize goals. All right, it's not really the most useful term, and I'm not really going to test you on that. But so we're going to go to expressions of behavior. Small actions such as an eye roll or head nod that serve as an interactional tool to help project our definition of the situation to others. Okay, so in other words, you can actually, through nonverbal communication, you can actually say a whole lot, right? Every now and then when we're talking to somebody and they give you the eye roll, you actually point it out. That was an eye roll. I know what you mean. I know what you did right there. You're like, you don't believe. They go, yeah, right. All right. So then Goffman came up with two other kinds of expressions besides expressions of behavior. Expressions given, and those are verbal, okay, such as utterances, like, yeah, right. That would be, Irving Goffman would call that an expression given. You know, you're listening to a person tell a story, and with a bunch of other people around, and one guy goes, yeah, right. That's Goffman would call that an expression given. But the eye roll, let's say this guy's telling a story to a group of people, and just as he's not looking at this one guy, you notice this one guy goes like that. That is expressions given off. Observable expressions that can be either intended or unintended and are usually nonverbal. Okay? So I want you to be aware of those terms because you're going to do it to people and have it done to you throughout your entire life. So it's kind of neat to, have that knowledge of, sociologists study this stuff, and we do. Okay? So expressions of behavior, small actions such as an eye roll or head nod that serves as an interactional tool to help project our definition of the situation. And expressions given are intentional and usually verbal, such as utterances like, yeah, right. And expressions given off are that eye roll. All right. I'm going to take a moment here. If I can find a blank piece of paper. This will work. I'm going to write family. Peers, school, media. Which one of those has risen to the role of the most significant source of socialization? Peter? Which one? Peers? No. The media. The media. Okay? You're so interconnected with the media. You're doing it all the time, probably on your smartphones. My phone is not a smartphone, it's just a cell phone. I can't. I have to deal with the internet a lot because I teach online and I have to answer emails. I get so buried with emails that students almost every day come to me and go, did you get my email? And I go, yeah, probably, but now it's buried and I don't remember. I probably saved it and I probably marked it as unread so I could go back to it, but now it's way down here on my list and my computer only shows this many, my screen. So that happens to me. But that's media, all right? TV, all right? Netflix, newspapers, magazines. And hardly anybody buys newspapers and magazines anymore because you can read all this stuff on the internet. So people are constantly, if they're bored, they're sitting there and they're doing this. They're fooling around, they're reading stuff. They're, my son Daniel, he's constantly on the NFLs, looking at scores and stats, and he's a football nut, which is why my grandson is a defensive end for Schenectady junior varsity team. So yeah, the media has risen to the role of the most significant agent of socialization for Americans, for us. Now, I actually answered this question, but why is socialization a lifelong process? Jenna?
You're always faced with new things and new experiences.
One more time?
You're always faced with new things or new experiences.
Okay. You definitely are constantly going to come up against new situations, new behaviors, and another term we're going to go into right now, which is here's the definition for dramaturgy. An approach pioneered by Irving Goffman in which social life is analyzed in terms of its similarities to theatrical performance. Okay. These are terms you will be required to know. Right here. So everybody take note of what page we're on. Okay, before Tuesday, as you go through your book, reading all these little terms in the margins, make sure you stop at page 118. So, the definition of a total institution. An institution in which individuals are cut off from the rest of society so that their lives can be controlled and regulated for the purpose of systematically stripping away previous roles and identities in order to create new ones. So what comes to mind as the perfect example of a total institution? Nick? Prison. Prison is one. Can anybody think of another? One I've been through?
Would jail work for total institution though? Because
What?
would jail work for total institution?
Would jail? Yeah, prison.
Hospital.
What are you looking at?
I was confused. I just didn't think that would work.
You said jail, right?
Yeah, I didn't think that would work.
Well, there's, you might have to do time. Let's say you are accused of something and you really haven't gone to trial yet. You're probably going to go to a county jail. Okay? So Schenectady County has a jail, Albany County has a jail. And a jail is sort of a prison, but if you're awaiting a trial, most people in county jails they're transient. They're on their way to somewhere else. Either they get off, they are found not guilty in a trial, or they're found guilty and then they go on to a prison. So a jail is just sort of an intermediate, place you might head. This, okay, that's a total institution. And I told you why. Because they have to strip away your attitude as being an individual and teach you to think like a team member. Because that's how you're going to stay alive. You have to watch each other's back, especially if you're in an infantry kind of situation. Somebody's got to be looking around all the time behind you. All right, so let's go back to our terms. What's a status? A position in a social hierarchy that carries a particular set of expectations. So what is the most important status on a football team? Quarterback. That's a status. Okay? An ascribed status is an inborn status, usually difficult or impossible to change. All right, so here's an example. This is an example of difficult to change. Bruce Jenner. Who knows who Bruce Jenner is and what he did? Montana?
He is transgender.
He had surgery, right, to become a female.
Yeah.
All right, and he changed his name, and I'm not sure what that new name is.
Caitlin.
Caitlin?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know. Like I said, I am not bombarded by some of that. I know I gave an eye roll, didn't I? Expression given off. I'm not bombarded by that social media. I don't often pick up People magazine. My wife likes to read People magazine, which is just a step above the National Enquirer as far as I'm concerned. But so that's a status change that was hard to change. So basically, your gender is an ascribed status. Okay? The fact that I am a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, I had nothing to do with that. All right? Yeah, I could change my religion if I wanted to. I could, but I was born, in the Methodist religion, and I was born a European descended white guy. An embodied status is a status generated by physical characteristics. So in other words, if you have a disability, you're wheelchair bound, all right? So everybody has a mental picture if I say the name Stephen Hawking. How many of you know who Stephen Hawking is? Okay, good, almost everybody, all right. So, you know, one of the things that comes to mind when I say that name is you go, you know, brilliant astrophysicist, brilliant astrophysicist. But the other thing it comes to mind is that he's ill. He ended up with what's called Lou Gehrig's disease. I forget the correct medical term for it, but and he's survived a long time with that. And an achieved status is a status earned through individual effort or imposed by others. So right now, what achieved status am I exercising in front of all of you?
Teacher.
Teacher. Right. College professor. Actually, my title is assistant professor. Okay. So then I could move up to associate professor, and then the final thing is just professor. It's like, it's weird. There's a whole bunch of things before general, before you're finally just a general. If you're a 1-star general, you're a brigadier general. If you're a 2-star general, you're a major general. If you're a 3-star general, you're a lieutenant general. And if you're a 4-star general, you're just a general. So it's professors like that. You start out, you're a non-tenured instructor. Then you become an assistant professor. Then you become an associate professor. And then you become a professor. If your college lets you do that. I won't get started on that. Okay. All right. So let's go to this side. Master status is a status that is always relevant and affects all other statuses we possess. So college professor is one of my statuses. Okay? One of yours probably right now among you and your family and your friends is you're a student. Because it's important to probably a bunch of people that you're a student. How many of you are asked often, how's school going? Yeah, that's why. All right, stereotyping. Everybody knows that stereotyping is lumping a bunch of people together based on an unrealistic characteristic. So the definition they give here is judging others based on preconceived generalizations about groups or categories of people. And a role is the set of behaviors expected of someone because of his or her status. So what's one of the roles of a quarterback, the status quarterback? What's one of the roles?
Throw a touchdown pass.
Throw a pass. Throw a pass. Yeah, hopefully throw a touchdown pass like my man Aaron Rodgers did 5 times Monday night. That's my favorite team. I'm a Packers fan. I think that's a very unique football team. Do you know that they're owned by the people? Okay? It's a different type of franchise. And hardly does a Green Bay Packer ever leave the Packers. They're usually there for life. It's a really unique football team. I love the way just the way the team was built and how it's constructed and how it works. Plus, Aaron Rodgers is just a incredible player. He's better than Tom Brady as far as I'm concerned.
Hey.
Okay, role conflict and role strain, and we're not going to sweat role exit too much, but you know, if you leave a role that you no longer occupy. Okay, like I used to. Actually, one role exit for me would be scuba diving instructor. I'm not a scuba diving instructor in retirement. I don't do that. Insurance was incredibly high. Role conflict, though, is experienced when we occupy 2 or more roles with contradictory expectations. And role strain is the tension experienced when there are contradictory expectations within one role. So let's explain those. Okay? Is anybody familiar with a football player by the name of Chris Spielman? I actually can't think of right now. I used to know what team he played for. He was actually slated to go on television in an NFL game. He was going to be first string that day and play. And he was informed that his wife was very ill and had to have surgery. So what he did was he bowed out. So what were the 2 roles that were in role conflict for Chris Spielman? Football player and husband. right? Okay, so let's try to give an example. Can any of you guys possibly come up with an example for role strain? Within one role, you have a conflict for some reason. Nick? Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. The quarterback's decision to either pass or run. Nobody's open, and Rodgers does this a lot. Nobody's open, and he sees a hole, and he can run to the next first down line. Bam, he's off. He's off. And a lot of guys do that. Colin Kaepernick's pretty good at that. Brady once in a while, but he's getting old. He stands back there in his little pocket and throws. But he can throw. Man can throw. I'll tell you. Here's another example. Let's say one day you get up in the morning and your dad comes up and says, your uncle's coming into town today at noon. He's landing at Albany Airport, and I have an important meeting. Can you pick Uncle Bob up? And you go, yeah, I could do that. So then, later in the day, it's still morning, but, like maybe 10 o'clock, Mom calls you on your cell phone and says, hey, I finally got an appointment for the dog, because let's say your dog's sick, and he can go to the vet, and he's got to be there at noon. Can you take the dog to the vet? Do you have an issue right now?
Yes.
You're supposed to be at the airport at noon, all right, not driving the dog to the vet. But what's your role that has having a strain? Yeah, you're a child. You're somebody's kid. And both your parents have asked you to do something at the same time. How many of us have had that situation? Yeah. I can't. I can only do one of those things. Okay? All right. So, tomorrow, we're going to back the truck up to chapter 1. And using your unit test, I'm going to just kind of throw out some questions. And that will take 50 minutes. I will also be sending your Mr. Stewart, Miss Olson, and Mrs. Hoyt a test. You guys at South Courtright and Roxbury and Wyndham, the test you can just write on the test, okay? And then what I'm also going to need you to do is maybe make a copy of what answers you gave so that they can be sent to me so I can give you a grade, mark what's wrong and what's right. Okay, I'll figure out that. Maybe I can also let Mr. Stewart and Miss Olson grade your test for you. I'll give them the answer. Anybody have any questions? Don't sweat it. You're going to do really great on unit test number 1. Remember, it's on chapters 1 through 4.